All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number 7. That is right, week number 7 of your 7314 class, which is your reference class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. Jace K. Austin, and I can't believe we are almost halfway done. Next week will be our halfway point. So we are moving right along. I've truly enjoyed being with you all, and the fact that the semester is going fast does sort of signify how much I've enjoyed being with you all, because I am sure that if I did not enjoy this, the semester would not be going so fast. So thank you for being an enjoyable group of students, and what we are going to do today is a quick state of the course update, and then I'm going to tell you some things about Wikipedia to kind of give context to the Wikipedia edit assignment and why you have to do it, and yeah, just some things about Wikipedia as it pertains to libraries and as it pertains to information science in general. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into that state of the course update. Let's go for that. So what is up on the horizon? I am recording this on October the 6th, so we can get rid of all of that. And the next thing that is on the horizon is actually going to be your Wikipedia edit assignment. You all are now at the point of the class where you're not doing discussion board prompts every week. So from here, what you do is you work on your semester-long projects, you go hard on those, and then also you work on the other assignments that you have. That would be your Wikipedia edit assignment right now. And if I get enough people asking, I will go ahead and create the LibGuide accounts early. So if you would like to go ahead and get your LibGuide account, go ahead and send me a message. And then if enough of you say, yeah, I would like to get started on my LibGuide early, then no problem. I will go ahead and release those so that you all can get started. So that is what's going on right there. So the Wikipedia edit assignment is going to be due a week from Sunday. So you've got about a week in it. Well, you got basically 2 weeks, a week and a half, whatever, to do it, depending on when you watch this video. So yes, the Wikipedia edit assignment, again, coming up on the 19th. So this week's video is going to give some context to that. You don't have daily or weekly discussion board prompts anymore. You don't have another discussion board prompt due until November the 9th. So you don't have any more due in October. So go ahead again and concentrate on your semester-long projects. And we do have a final sync session next month. That is over a month away. We will be welcoming Jamie Livingston during that sync session. But until then, because that one is a ways off, don't even worry about that right now. So you guys are pretty much in a part of the class where, yes, continue your reading, continue with your major assignments, and continue with your semester-long project. But right now you're in kind of I know that you had kind of a rush, kind of a lot going on in the first parts of the class, and now I'm sure that your other classes are kind of picking up a little bit, so things are kind of getting a little more chill here as things pick up in your other classes. So go ahead and put in that work, but just know that, yeah, you can sail a little bit right now. This class shouldn't be the one stressing you out right now. Okay, and that really should be it for yeah, some other things when it comes to the state of the course update. I'm sorry. One thing that I was about to forget to mention, but now I have remembered, is that, yes, when you do the Wikipedia edit assignment, one thing that I actually had more of you, this time around, I had more of you with APA mistakes than I would have liked. Generally, I just don't have this many people who had APA mistakes. And if you made APA mistakes and lost points, that is okay. That is okay. You didn't lose so many points that you're at risk of failing the class or at risk of not getting an A or anything like that. But what I do want you to know is, again, I had warned you all ahead of time of what I would be looking for, those 2 common mistakes. And several of you did make those same mistakes that I warned you ahead of time that I'd be looking for. So if you made those mistakes, watch that video. I gave you some advice when I was grading your papers as well, saying to watch those videos. But go ahead and or watch that video, that particular video. Go ahead and watch it. And I don't want to see those mistakes. Those mistakes are actually going to count off more this time around with the Wikipedia edit assignment if you're making the same mistakes that you made with the virtual reference practice paper. Okay, so get that cleaned up. Please know that I'm not being hard on you. It's just a matter of, again, we have to graduate our students with a certain skill set, and part of that skill set is detail orientation. That's going to come in handy when you're a librarian. And then another part of that skill set is, quite frankly, being familiar with citation styles. You don't have to have your citation styles mastered, but there are nuances within all the major citation styles, whether it's APA, MLA, or Chicago, and you have to be ready to navigate those nuances as a librarian. It's just how it is, okay? All right, let's go ahead and pause it, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about a few things about Wikipedia. All right, so yeah, let's talk a little bit about some Wikipedia here. So first of all, the first thing that I want to do when I talk about this, when I do this check-in video, and I do this check-in video pretty much every semester, that just contextualizes Wikipedia. And what I want to do, first of all, is explain that some of the things that you've probably been told about Wikipedia in the past are actually not true from an information science perspective and from a library science perspective. So here's what I mean. So with Wikipedia, a lot of times students don't use it as an actual source, and they shouldn't. But there are reasons to use Wikipedia when you are working in a library, and so we're going to talk about that today. But the reasons why you would use Wikipedia are not in order to build sources that you're actually going to list in a reference list. You're not actually going to use Wikipedia as one of your reference sources or one of the things that you're citing in an actual paper. And I'm going to tell you why. You all may have been told that the issue is accuracy in the past, and that is actually not the case. Wikipedia is actually just as accurate as Encyclopedia Britannica. However, there are still two reasons why we don't build our sources lists, or our reference lists, or our bibliographies with Wikipedia stuff. And the reason for that is with Wikipedia pages, I should say. And the reason for that is that even though Wikipedia doesn't have an accuracy problem, it does have two problems that we have to deal with within the scholarly community. And those two problems are authority and stability. Again, authority and stability. So I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. All right, so through the duration of this video, what we're going to do is a few things. First of all, I'm going to explain why this Wikipedia edit assignment is my favorite assignment that I assign in any of my classes. I'm also going to break down what I mean by authority and stability and why Wikipedia fails in these regards. And then I am going to tell you all about Wikipedia edit-a-thons, and then the final thing that I'm going to do is share some information about somebody who has a lot of influence on our information landscape, and yet most of you probably have not even heard his name. So we're going to get into that. There will be this one will be long, so I'll tell you when are good times to take breaks. The first time that I'll say now would be a good time to take a break, and then you can pause. So first, let's get into why this is my favorite assignment of all the assignments that I do assign. The reason for that is because this assignment helps people externally. So there is something to be said about, okay, you can turn in these assignments and they help you and they help me and they may help your classmates. I do believe that the discussion boards, they help you and your classmates. I do believe that the virtual reference practice paper is something that is very useful for helping both the student and the partner that they were paired with. So that helps you and a classmate and those sorts of things. Building a LibGuide, that's going to help you with future job aspirations and that sort of thing. And then also the semester-long project that also helps you as far as learning a few things about the libraries and the different resources that libraries have. But when it comes to the Wikipedia edit assignment and the fact that you are going to be editing a Wikipedia page and making it better, that is something that I believe helps society at large. I believe that that's one thing that we can do as librarians, as information professionals, in order to help society at large, is we are trained to be able to determine good information from bad information, and we have the ability to reduce barriers to access to information. And one way we can do that is through Wikipedia. One way we can do that is through having a Wikipedia page that you have enhanced and made better due to information that you knew about or were able to find through your connections through libraries or what have you, your better search techniques or whatever the case may be. These sorts of things play into you being able to make a Wikipedia page better for the general public. And if your changes stick, they could be around for 10 plus years. And who knows, over those 10 plus years, how many people are going to actually access that Wikipedia page? It could be 10, but it could be 10,000. And whether it's 10 or 10,000, all of those people still have access to better information based on the work that you did. So hopefully this will kind of contextualize why I think this assignment is so great. It's not just because the assignment helps you and helps contextualize Wikipedia for you and everything. I do feel that it's a way of us giving back. I feel it's a way of us getting better information out there to the public. And as information professionals, whether you are a librarian, an archivist, a museum curator, a journalist, whatever, that is getting good information out there to the public is what you want to do as an information professional. So that's your focus. If you want to pause here, you can. Okay, and now that you're back, what I will talk about from here is the stability and authority issues that Wikipedia has. So again, Wikipedia is just as accurate as Encyclopedia Britannica. Studies have been done on this. The peer review system within Wikipedia, at least right now, works, and it makes Wikipedia a highly accurate resource. And that's something that a lot of you have probably been told in the past, that Wikipedia wasn't accurate. You've probably been told by, I'm old enough to where there wasn't Wikipedia when I was in K-12, right? I graduated from high school in 2001. Some of you weren't even born yet. That I say that to say that with, I was never in a situation where we were, in my upbringing, I had people who weren't affiliated with colleges telling me how reliable or unreliable Wikipedia was. We had encyclopedias when I was growing up back in the 90s, okay? Now, when it comes to today's landscape, first of all, I should also mention that, yes, Wikipedia was around when I was in college. I was an undergrad from 2001 to 2005. But during those times, Wikipedia was still in its infancy. And so people weren't even really, like my professors back in 2001 to 2005, they didn't really say a bunch about Wikipedia and not to use it, because by that time, people weren't really using it like that. Google, back then, there were still people who didn't know whether the proper search engine to use would be Google as compared to Yahoo or Alta Vista and some of these things that you all probably have not even heard of if you're young. So, I say that to say that with the age gap that's going to be in place between me and a lot of y'all, one thing that needs to be clear is that you all are coming up in a situation where, okay, you had K-12 teachers tell you don't use Wikipedia. And usually the only reason that they come up with is that Wikipedia is inaccurate. And so once you actually start telling students, hey, Wikipedia isn't inaccurate, it's just as accurate as Encyclopedia Britannica, or start telling patrons or whoever that, any sort of audience, once you start telling people that, then the question becomes, okay, so if Wikipedia is just as accurate as Encyclopedia Britannica, then it is a reliable source. Why am I being told to not use it as a source when I'm building a reference list? And again, the reasons for that are authority and stability. So I'm going to tell you at this time what is meant by those things. All right, so stability and authority. What do I mean by those two things? So let's start with stability. So stability is when a source will say the same thing no matter when you access it. That is when a source is stable. So for instance, let's say that you have a outdated version, like some sort of textbook from 1978, right? All right, so let's say you have this textbook from 1978, and the textbook has a lot of out-of-date information in it because over the past 40 plus years, 45 years, whatever, we have discovered a lot of things that we did not know back in 1978. So let's say that you have this textbook and you cite some information from that textbook. That textbook in 2025 is still going to say the same thing that it said in 1978. It's a stable source. Wikipedia is not stable. As you all know, Wikipedia can be edited by anyone at any time unless they have been banned from editing Wikipedia. So what that means is that a source on Wikipedia, a Wikipedia page, could say one thing one day and could say one thing the next, but that is not an accuracy issue. Wikipedia could still be more accurate than that 1978 textbook, but still not be an appropriate thing to use on your references list. And let me give you an example of that so that I can illustrate what I mean. So Wikipedia is, let's take, I'm old enough to remember this. There used to be a country called the USSR. We used to call it the Soviet Union. Quite frankly, I don't remember what USSR actually stands for. Unity of Socialist Soviet Republics or something like that. But anyway, there used to be this country called the USSR. I was in elementary school when the USSR actually split up and became Russia and some other countries. So let's say that there was a hypothetical world where Wikipedia existed in the early 1990s. Actually, let's go further and say, let's go with a world where Wikipedia existed in the 1980s. In the 1980s, if a Wikipedia page said the USSR is, that would be accurate, because at that time, the USSR was still a thing. In 1987, the USSR existed. So if a source said the USSR, like if a Wikipedia page said the USSR is, that would be accurate. The USSR is something that exists at this time. However, if the Wikipedia page said in 2025, let's say this is the same Wikipedia page, in 2025, that Wikipedia page says the USSR was. It no longer says it is, it says it was, because the USSR no longer exists. In both of those cases, the Wikipedia page is accurate. The Wikipedia page said in 1987 that the USSR is, because the USSR still existed at that time. But in 2025, that same Wikipedia page now says the USSR was. That page has been updated. Yes, the Wikipedia page is still accurate. It's accurate in both of those situations. However, it is unstable, meaning that if a scholar needed to go in and see what was being written about the USSR in 1987, they could not rely on Wikipedia for that, because Wikipedia will have added and removed some information at that time. But that's not an accuracy issue. Actually, Wikipedia would be more accurate than a textbook that said, like, if you had a textbook from 1987 that said the USSR is such and such a thing, that textbook is still going to say that same thing today. That textbook that was published in 1987 still says the same thing in 2025. So the textbook is no longer accurate because the USSR isn't anything anymore. It's not a thing. It's a was. It's a past tense. So if the textbook is claiming that the USSR is a functioning republic, then that is not true. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Wikipedia in 2025 would be more accurate than that 1987 textbook, but because the accuracy isn't the issue, because that Wikipedia page has been altered, it is not stable, it's not something that can be relied on when you are trying to put together anything for scholastic purposes. The second issue, and after this, I will encourage you all to take another break. But the second issue with Wikipedia that we need to be mindful of is its authority. So when I talk about authority, I'm talking about authorship. I'm a former newspaper reporter myself. So I worked for the Henderson Daily Dispatch in Henderson, North Carolina for about 3 years. While I was working with the Henderson Daily Dispatch, I was writing articles, and my articles would have a byline on them, a line that said, by Jason Austin, okay? And you knew who wrote the article, and so if you wanted to, you could decide, hey, does he have biases? Does he have this? Does he have that? Why is he writing this article? What are his objectives? So forth and so on, okay? And so when you see authorship of especially op-ed columns out there, you can kind of get a hint from the author as to what the slant of that article or that op-ed column is going to be. If you see something that is written by Rachel Maddow or Ezra Klein, you can believe that that's probably going to be something with a leftist or liberal slant and with a leftist or liberal agenda. Same thing with Tucker Carlson. If you see that he's written something, or Bill O'Reilly, excuse me, Bill O'Reilly still writes plenty of things. If you see Bill O'Reilly or um, Glenn Beck or something like that on a byline, then you can probably make a safe assumption that this is something that's going to have a conservative slant, that's going to have a right-wing objective, something of that nature, okay? And so, yes, when you have bylines, you can actually interrogate what the author might be up to. And we don't have that in Wikipedia. In Wikipedia, if you are diligent enough, you can try to determine who made what edit at what time by following IP addresses and things like that, because some of that stuff is actually edited by anonymous people, not even people who are logged into the resource, okay? But if that's the case, and that is the case with Wikipedia, if that's the case, that we don't know who's adding the information or who's taking the information, we don't know that explicitly. We have to go digging for that. That is an authority issue. It's an authorship issue, because now we cannot identify who is adding this information, and when we can't when we can't identify who is adding, subtracting, whatever the information, then we are also not able to determine what their motives are. You won't always know the person's motives, even if you do know their identity. But if you have no idea what their identity is, then there's no realistic chance that you're going to be able to weigh their motives and determine whether or not they are acting to persuade, acting simply to inform, acting to disinform, whatever the case may be. Okay, so those are the things that we have to be mindful of when we're talking about authority. So we want things when we're actually, and not everything is going to have an explicit person as an author. That's why when you look at APA citation styles, yes, they do allow you to cite for a corporate author, for unknown author, and so forth and so on. But you don't want to, especially with unknown author and anonymous author, you probably don't want to make a habit of that anyway. You want to know who is putting this information out there. And when that is unknown, you want there to be a good reason why it is unknown. But for the purposes of Wikipedia, you might as well, once you go to a page, you're not really going to be looking to say, oh, well, this sentence was added by this user, that sentence was added by that user. That's not how it's going to work out. You are literally going to be in there just reading that information and having no idea who put it out. And so that is an authority issue. So those are the two reasons why we stay away from Wikipedia when it comes to building references lists or bibliographies or things like that, why we don't cite Wikipedia directly unless we are doing something that is about Wikipedia or we have some other specialized circumstances. We don't cite Wikipedia directly unless it's about Wikipedia or, again, some other circumstances. What you do, you can use Wikipedia to build a source list by following the footnotes and the links that you see, going to the links that are footnoted and that sort of thing, going to the information that is cited. But it is best to go to that information that is cited instead of depending on Wikipedia and citing Wikipedia directly. Now, when you do your Wikipedia edit assignment, you can cite Wikipedia because you are doing something about Wikipedia. Now, if that doesn't make sense, reach out to me and I will elaborate further. But those are really your two reasons. Wikipedia does not have an accuracy issue. So I don't want you all leaving this class saying that Wikipedia has an accuracy issue. It does not. It has an authority issue and it has a stability issue. But that does not mean, and before we go to the next pause, I will say that does not mean that you cannot use Wikipedia, that Wikipedia does not have useful uses on the information desk, on the reference desk. It absolutely does. Before the internet, and I am old enough, I'm not old enough to have practiced before the internet, but I am old enough to have worked with librarians who were librarians before the World Wide Web. So when I was in my first few librarian roles back in the 2000s and the 2010s, there were still librarians who had operated in the 80s and early 90s who knew the old ways of doing things. And the old ways of doing things before we had Google was that librarians, when they would get a reference question, the first thing that they would do would be they would go to the encyclopedias, to the Britannicas or whatever the case may be, and they would get some background information, learn a little bit about the subject that the person had just put in front of them. And then from there, once they learned a little bit more about the subject, that's when they could go into the card catalog and start trying to find the resources. Okay. Now, the internet has changed that. The internet now allows librarians to just Google. And so they don't have to run to the encyclopedias to get that background information to learn about the subject. But what I would say about that is that the library also, so all that to say that these days what librarians are doing is they are actually using Wikipedia. When a question comes on the reference desk and the librarian doesn't know what they're dealing with, they are going on Wikipedia really quick, getting some background information, following links, sometimes going into those rabbit holes, but they do all that to get that background information that they need on that subject. And from there, what they can do is they can plug subject terms in and find additional resources for their patron based on what they learn on Wikipedia. Okay, and Wikipedia, again, because it's accurate, because it's just as accurate as those old encyclopedias used to be, that approach does work. So that's what you're going to be using Wikipedia on the reference desk, not so much to use it as a direct source that somebody can cite, but it is certainly going to give you the background information that you need in order to tell your patron, okay, now I understand this subject. Here's what we need to do in order to, and then you start typing, here's what we need to do in order to find you some good resources, some good articles, some books in the card catalog or the OPAC, whatever, and that sort of thing. Okay. So that is the, yeah, that's how we use Wikipedia these days in the libraries. And now what I am going to do, you can take a break here. After you take a break here, I'm going to tell you about Wikipedia edit-a-thons. And then from there, the last thing we'll do is I'll tell you a little bit again about somebody who has big influence on our information landscape. Pause. All right, so what I want to do now is switch gears and try to sell you on the concept of Wikipedia edit-a-thons. So let's talk about that for a second. So one thing that you're probably going to hear me say quite a bit if you take more classes with me is that I do talk a lot about how librarianship isn't activism. There is a difference between activism and advocacy, and librarianship is advocacy. Now, the basics of the matter is that, because we don't have time for this in this class, so the basics for that distinction is that activists are not accountable to the power structure, whereas advocates work within the power structure. So if you are a librarian, you're not an activist because you are actually working within the power structure. You are employed by the power structure. So advocates shouldn't do activist things and vice versa. And so I hear a lot of librarians try to call themselves activist librarians and that sort of thing. It's a bunch of hogwash. But with that said, if you want to do something related to social justice, there is advocacy work that you can do that puts your librarian skills, your librarian this, that, and the fourth, to the forefront. And those things would be one of those things that you can do to kind of have a social justice role within libraries and to do things beyond your 9-to-5 job within libraries is that you can be a part of edit-a-thons. And before I even get into what an edit-a-thon is, I'm going to talk about how this type of activity, this type of advocacy can actually lead to benefits for people, again, outside of this class, for benefits of people at large, disenfranchised populations at large that have that basically have not been seen the way that they should be seen. And edit-a-thons give you a chance to have certain people from certain backgrounds seen and to get information out there that hasn't been readily prioritized previously. So let's talk about this. This is a great example of what I'm talking about, and I'm going to link this article in the actual announcement for this check-in video. So this is, let me just say it up front. Wikipedia has a gender bias, and in fact, Wikipedia's gender bias is so strong that there is actually a Wikipedia page about Wikipedia's gender bias. Okay, and the reason for that is that Wikipedia does kind of concentrate on the accomplishments of men historically. So when you pull up biographies in Wikipedia, a lot of times they're going to be men, and a lot of times if they're women, they're going to be things like entertainers and that sort of thing. But there are women have done a lot in history, probably rivaling men and that sort of thing, but the way we record history doesn't really reveal it to be that way. Okay, and so one way to correct that wrong is one way to deal with Wikipedia's gender bias is to put information out there about women, put high quality information out there about women. And that is what Jessica Wade has done. So this headline here, this 33-year-old made more than 1,000 Wikipedia biographies for unknown female scientists. This is advocacy work, it's social justice work, but it's the type of work that you can do as a librarian without being out of your element. Okay. And that is the thing. When I am going to soapbox on this a little bit. A lot of librarians who go around trying to do activist stuff, they are operating out of their element. They are not prepared to be activists. They certainly do not have the safety net that an activist would need, to the point where if they got fired for trying to do their activist stuff while working for the government. By the way, Huey Newton would slap anyone, and Fred Hampton would slap anybody who is calling themselves an activist while they're working for the government. Just don't do that. If you were drawing a government check, don't call yourself an activist, okay? But yes, this is the advocacy work that we can do, and it's the type of advocacy work that we are built for, and the type of thing that you don't need a safety net for this. You're not going to risk your job doing this type of thing. If you were to, like, let's say that instead of scientists, you decided, hey, there are a lot of women, a lot of women archaeologists out there, and their biographies are not out there, but they need to be known. All you see is these male archaeologists. You just see what they've done. Well, that is a historical injustice that you can change. And it's as simple as doing research, finding out who hasn't been covered, which is what Jessica Wade did, and then going out, putting those things together. And once those Wikipedia biographies were made about those women, they've endured. She's made more, and other people have enhanced them. So this is so for those of you who want, and if you're watching this video, especially now that it's gone over 30 minutes, if you're watching this video, you probably are somebody who has kind of a passion for librarianship. You don't just want this you have a passion for information, you have a passion for this field, and you want to do things on a social justice level. Well, this is something you can do, again, on a social justice level, is participate in Wikipedia editathons and enhancing Wikipedia, finding out what Wikipedia has on a social justice level, what they've lacked, which, again, one of the things that they've lacked is biographies about important women. So important women in science. Jessica Wade has covered that, but you've also got archaeology, you've also got medicine, you've also got law, you've also got so many things. And they don't have to be biographies. You can talk about things that women have done. If a woman has invented something and it's something significant, but that invention isn't on Wikipedia, it could be you who writes that wrong. Okay. So hopefully your brain meats are kind of flowing now. You're kind of seeing what I'm saying about this, and how, yes, we as information professionals, we are the ones who are equipped to help right this wrong. And so it is best that we have a hand in it, in my opinion. So I am hoping that some of you who have a more social justice slant to how you approach things, this will be something that you take up. But let's go into a upcoming Wikipedia editathon. So this one's coming up on November the 9th, next month. And this is, adoption mosaic. So I will say this is if you are interested in participating in this Wikipedia editathon, there's a link to register. I'll put this in the announcement as well. I do want to just really quick talk about the adoption thing, even before I get into the editathon, but there's a reason for that too. I am the father of an adopted child, and adoption isn't as positive as a lot of people make it out to be. There are a lot of bad things that are happening with adoption and with foster care systems and that sort of thing. So a good voice, if you want a librarian's voice who speaks on this and speaks very well on this subject, his name is Tony Corsentino, and I will also put I'll put his name in the announcement as well. So I'm putting a lot in this announcement. But Tony Corsentino, he really talks very well about the dark sides of adoption, because every time I adopted out of foster care and I hear people and they're like, well, thank you for doing that. And I'm just like, oh, don't thank people just because they adopted out of foster care. There are some things that you don't know. Yes, I did it well intentioned, and I can honestly say that I did not tear a family apart with my adoption of my foster child, because I know who the biological mother was. But there are situations where that's not the case. In fact, it's usually the case that that's not the case. And so then things can get really grimy with adoption. There is a underbelly for adoption. Having said that, that is why you need an edit-a-thon. So trust me, if it didn't seem like I was going to bring that back, I was. So adoption has a overly positive narrative attached to it. In the United States. And yet, if you talk to a lot of adoptees, you will see that a lot of them, and it wasn't even that they were abused by their adoptive parents or something like that, because we instantly think abuse. No, there are adoptees that are out there who, you know, they were forbidden from connecting with who they really are, who their biological families were, and that sort of thing. The records have been sealed and they can't get them unsealed. There are a lot of stories like that. There are a lot of stories of people just basically going in and trying to get designer babies and getting them, and that's awful. People who say, well, yeah, I want this, I want a baby with an olive skin complexion and that sort of thing. And these adoption agencies are actually going in and just finding these types of kids and that sort of thing, almost like it's a McDonald's menu. There's a very seedy underbelly with adoption. So in order to get the truth about adoption out there and get past this dominant narrative about adoption, yes, an edit-a-thon is appropriate. Now, the people that are probably going to be participating in this edit-a-thon are probably going to be people who were adoptees, or who they had their kids taken away from them unjustly and their kids got adopted and that sort of thing. That happens a lot. But whoever is out here about to challenge this dominant narrative, they're probably people who are linked to the issue. But when you see things like, and that tends to be the case, you'll see a lot of medical edit-a-thons, for instance, where they're updating information about diseases and doctors and treatments and that sort of thing. You will usually see librarians involved with that, but then a lot of times you'll also see nurses, doctors, med school people, that sort of thing involved with that. So it's something to where usually the people who are involved are close to the issue. So again, medical edit-a-thons, you'll see doctors. If you have something about science edit-a-thons, you'll see biologists and chemists and that sort of thing chiming in. But who you'll see there, regardless of what the subject matter is us, is the librarians, because we are the ultimate generalists. We know a little bit about everything so that we can find information for people. And people who are in backgrounds, who have backgrounds, academic backgrounds that are unrelated to what we do, we still have to find information for them. And so we have to be grounded in all of these things. And I think we do a pretty decent job with that. So regardless of if you're doing a science edit-a-thon or a women's edit-a-thon or a Black History edit-a-thon or an edit-a-thon about adoption, a lot of times, again, most of the people who are going to be involved are close to the issue, but you will see us everywhere. And so, yes, there will hopefully be some librarians who are going to get into this and work on this adoption edit-a-thon and get some truth out there about adoption. Okay. So I want that to be out there. Edit-a-thons, you can often Google around and find information about them. And then also, if you don't want to wait for somebody else to host an edit-a-thon, I'm not going to go over this in detail because, again, the video is running kind of long here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to link this out, that this is how to host a Wikipedia edit-a-thon in your community. And this is something that again, you can read. This just came out last year, so this is something that you can read. And if you think that there needs to be an edit-a-thon about anything, then this is your chance to go ahead and host one and organize one. And that's something that I would also love to see our LIS student group do at some point in time. Is I would love to see them do an annual edit-a-thon about whatever topic. They could select a topic each year and decide, okay, this year we're going to do an edit-a-thon about this, and we encourage all of our LIS students to participate in that sort of thing. But that's wishful thinking, but it's something that I still might throw out there. All right, so again, I'm not going to go through this. If you're interested in hosting a Wikipedia edit-a-thon, this will give you the steps on how to do it. All right, now would be a good time to pause, and then we are going to go into the last thing, and I'm going to spend about 10 minutes talking about the last thing, so this will be a 50-minute video. I hope you have sped it up, but go ahead and take a break here. Okay, thank you for joining me. Thank you for getting back. Now what we are going to do, our final thing that we're going to do today is we are going to talk about a figure. somebody that you have probably not heard of, but somebody who has probably had an effect on the information that you consume, and the information that your friends consume, and the information that your family consumes, and the information that I am consuming. So, and this is something that worries me, and I'm going to get into why this is more the abstract stuff, more like sort of like information science theorizing that I'm doing. So that's why I leave it at the end. I want this to be the most optional of the optional content. All right. But so, as we all know, there are bad actors out there who have an influence on our information here in the United States, foreign actors, basically, who try to influence our politics by creating bots and that sort of thing and getting on social media. We do know that countries, including China and Russia, have tried to influence American elections and the attitudes of the American public by engaging people through troll farms. We know that there are bots out there that engage people. We know that there are trolls that are deceiving Americans and putting bad information out there and putting divisive information out there and trying to make sure that Americans stay divided. Okay. And again, the reason they're able to do that is through information. It's through an influence of information. It's through corrupting information and that sort of thing. But it is also due to us not really knowing who we're communicating with as we're communicating out there. So you will see pages, for instance, when you're on Facebook. I got rid of my Facebook about 5 years ago. But when you're on Facebook, you will see that you're not always communicating with people who have real profiles. You will see some profiles out there that are clearly fake, that were clearly made a few days or a few weeks, that don't have any real like pictures and stuff, things that just look suspect. And then you'll also communicate with pages, and the pages don't necessarily, and groups and that sort of thing. And these things don't even have sometimes people who are explicitly, you don't even know who's running the page, for instance. The page might be communicating with you, but you don't know who's running that page. And then when you get on other forms of social media like Twitter, it can be even more tricky. Things like Twitter and Threads and Blue Sky, those sorts of things. You will see a lot of, again, anonymous accounts that don't really have a name associated to them. And you'll have a lot of people going back and forth just anonymously and that sort of thing. And they will be, they're getting divisive, they're getting emotional as they're doing it. Okay. But what's also happening throughout all of this is that information is entangling itself with emotion. And when information entangles with emotion, that is when people really start to get disinformed, because what people are doing is they're going to take in and observe and respect the information that makes them feel their best. And they will disregard or try to excuse believing what makes them feel their worst. Okay. Information and emotion is a very understudied area that I wish I had more time to do research in. Having said that, why, even though I will say that the peer review structure of Wikipedia has prevented Wikipedia from falling victim to being used in these sorts of ways so far, but I don't know if that's always going to be the case. And part of the reason why I worry is because of this man right here, Stephen Pruitt. So Stephen Pruitt is somebody who has made over 6 million edits to Wikipedia, y'all. That is a lot. And that includes, he has created more than 30,000 original Wikipedia articles. Why does this alarm me? Because we don't know who this guy is. Had you all, I'm sure that probably only 2 or 3 of you had heard of Stephen Pruitt before this video. And yet this man has a very large influence on the information that you're taking in, the information that millions of Americans are taking in, reading and researching every day. He has a large imprint on that, and yet people don't even know who he is. To me, that's scary. Now, we do know, and actually there have been now some interviews of Stephen Pruitt and that sort of thing, so that makes this a little less intimidating, but I still wonder, yes, this Stephen Pruitt appears to have honorable motives. He doesn't appear to be trying to do anything that's going to harm America or try to harm Americans or try to harm people in general. He just does seem to be trying to get information out there. But what if the next Stephen Pruitt is somebody who has an affiliation with Russia, for instance, and is working for Putin and wants to bring down the United States? What if that's the next Stephen Pruitt? And then what if, due to AI and all these bots and everything that are springing up, the peer review system fails? Because, right now the peer review system probably is being mostly done through other people. But what if artificial intelligence and these bots and that sort of thing, what if they really start doing the peer review on Wikipedia articles? And then what if that peer review does come with, quite frankly, what if it comes with a bias to where these bots are, like, let's say that these bots are created in Russia or created in China or something like that, but they have an objective to try to get bad information out to the populace. If that happens, and then these bots that are programmed to do malevolent things are the things that are peer reviewing what people who might be foreign actors are putting out there on Wikipedia, that can open us up again to more divisive information, to more information that's incorrect. And it could lead to Wikipedia. Wikipedia does have a neutrality factor in it to where things have to be presented from a neutral point of view and everything, but that could also be threatened, I feel. So these are the things that we have to look out for. The information landscape is changing a lot by the minute, and there are going to be people out there who can do what Stephen Pruitt does, but they may not have the honorable intentions that Stephen Pruitt has. And that could be a big problem for us. So I'm going to leave it there. We are at 46 minutes. I am Dr. Jace, and you may have heard that Wikipedia is inaccurate, but that is not the case. Jace Case, I made my rhyme. I can go to sleep well, and I am a message away if you need me. Thank you all, and we'll see you next week for another check-in video. Ta-ta for now.